Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something pretty specific, a structured guide for one-on-one client meetings.
That's right. It's geared towards mutual fund advisors who use what's called a relationship selling approach.
And that's key, isn't it? It's not just pushing products. It's about, understanding the client, building a connection.
Exactly. The source we're digging into is this detailed, structured best practice guide. Our mission, really, is to unpack the main steps and insights.
See how the pros build those strong client bonds and give, well, suitable advice.
And look, even if you listing aren't a financial advisor, stick with us. Because the core idea is here. Good communication, figuring out needs, building trust. That's useful everywhere.
Okay, let's get into it. The guide kicks off before the meeting even starts. Preparation, mindset, compliance.
Yeah, it really stresses this. You can't just walk in cold.
So what does that prep look like?
Well, first, clarifying your objective. Like, what are maybe the top 3 things you need to understand from this specific client in this meeting?
And thinking about a potential fund category even before you start.
Right. Based on what you already know, what might fit. It gives you a starting point, a direction for the conversation.
And a big part of that, what you already know, is the KYC data, right? Know your client.
Absolutely crucial. Reviewing their KYC profile, maybe their fund facts, if they're an existing client, you need those basics down.
Like their age, tax bracket, risk score.
Exactly. What they already hold, how long they plan to invest, their time horizon. It's foundational knowledge.
Why is that so critical before the chat?
Because it lets you tailor the conversation from the get-go. Think about it. If you know someone, say, 60, and has a low risk score, you won't start by talking about aggressive growth funds, right?
Right. You'd maybe think about income generation or capital preservation.
Precisely. Or imagine you see a high risk score, but they've told you before they need the money in 3 years for a down payment.
Okay. So the score isn't everything. The context matters. Their capacity for risk changes.
That's it. The KYC helps you see that potential conflict or nuance before you walk in. It helps you prepare relevant questions.
The guide also mentions practical stuff like backing visual aids.
Yeah, things like the fun fact sheets themselves, maybe a simple pie chart showing a sample asset mix.
A blank risk worksheet, too.
These aren't just props. They genuinely help understanding. It's one thing to talk about asset allocation. It's another to show a 60-40 split visually.
Makes sense. Easier to grasp. And the blank worksheet.
That's for collaboration. You can fill it out with the client, discuss the questions. It makes the risk assessment more of a conversation, less of a test.
Now, ethics. The guide puts this front and center. Ethics first.
Non-negotiable. You need to be ready, completely ready, to talk about fees, CRM2 disclosures.
Embedded commissions, if any.
Yep. And your fiduciary duty, or whatever the specific standard is under, say, FP Canada or CRO rules, it's about total transparency.
No surprises later.
Exactly. Trust is built on openness. If a client feels something was hidden, especially about costs, that relationship is damaged, maybe permanently. Being upfront prevents that.
Okay, so prep done, ethics, top of mind. Now you actually arrive. The first impression. The guide says the first 30, 60 seconds are huge.
They really are. We make snap judgments, don't we? So little things matter.
Like being punctual, arriving 5 minutes early.
Shows respect for their time. Silencing your phone seems obvious, but it signals they have your full attention. No distractions.
And appearance. The guide suggests what? Conservative colors, neat hair, minimal jewelry. Seems a bit detailed.
It might feel that way, but it's about projecting credibility and professionalism.
Yeah.
You want the focus on your advice, not your flashy tie, you know? It minimizes potential distractions and helps build that feeling of trust and competence.
Okay. Then the actual greeting. Stand up, smile.
A genuine smile.
Warmth.
Firm handshake about 2 seconds, the guide says.
Yeah, not bone-crushing, but confident. Square your shoulders shows openness. And eye contact. Crucial for connection. It's a lot to remember in a few seconds.
It becomes habit. Each piece sends a positive signal, subconsciously often.
Then there's the small talk bridge, using a personal detail.
Yeah, like, how was Ella's soccer game last weekend? Or did you enjoy that concert you mentioned? Something you recall from a previous chat.
Shows you listen, that they're not just an account number.
Exactly. It builds rapport immediately, shows you care about them as a person, like remembering they were going on a trip. How was Italy? It just warms things up.
Okay, rapport building started. Now, setting the stage for the actual discussion. The guide calls it rapport and agenda setting and mentions a permission statement.
Right. This is where you explicitly outline the plan for the meeting and get their okay.
Like saying, so what I'd like to do today is learn a bit more about your current goals, maybe share some options based on that, and then make sure we're clear on any next steps. Does that sound all right?
Perfect example. It does a few things. Sets expectations, shows respect for their time, and gets their buy-in. It makes it feel collaborative, not like you're just going to talk at them.
And immediately after that, a purpose plus benefit statement.
Yeah, connecting the process to why it matters for them.
So continuing from the permission, doing this will help us make sure any recommendations really fit your lifestyle and, importantly, your comfort level with risk.
Exactly. You're answering the what's in it for me question right away.
Mm.
It frames the discussion around their needs and benefits. It's not just let's talk funds, it's let's find what works for you.
Then how do you actually pivot into the main part, the discovery? The guide suggests a transition phrase.
Just a natural way to open it up. Something like, so maybe we could start with what's new in your life, or if anything's changed financially since we last connected.
Gentle, open-ended.
Yeah, it invites them to share updates without pressure. And you might learn something crucial. A job change, a new family member, an unexpected expense. Things that definitely impact the financial plan.
Which brings us right into discovery questions, understanding their needs. The guide talks about an FCBT funnel. Fact, concern, benefit, tie back.
Yeah, it's a structured way to dig deeper than just surface-level stuff. Fact-finding is just the start.
So let's break that down. An open factual question first.
Right. Broad questions about their goals. Like the example, what are some of the major milestones you're hoping to achieve, financially speaking, over the next, say, 10 years?
Gets them thinking big picture, retirement, education funding, maybe buying property.
Exactly. You need that context. Someone saving for retirement in 20 years needs a different conversation than someone saving for a house in 5, even if other factors look similar.
Okay. After facts come in like concerns, probing questions.
This is about understanding their anxieties, what worries them. The guide suggests things like, how are you feeling about the market volatility we've seen lately? Or what are your biggest financial uncertainties right now?
Getting to the emotional side, the things that might keep them up at night.
Precisely. Are they worried about running out of money? Scared of losing principal? Concerned about inflation eroding their savings? Knowing their fears is just as vital as knowing their goals. A client terrified of market drops needs a different approach, maybe more focus on downside protection.
Makes sense. Then the C is clarify. This involves paraphrasing.
Yeah, this is crucial for making sure you're both on the same page. You reflect back what you think you heard.
Like the example. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, maintaining a stable cash flow seems more important to you currently than chasing maximum growth. Is that accurate?
Exactly. It shows you're listening, first off. And it gives them a chance to say, well, not quite, or yes, that's exactly it. Avoids misunderstandings down the line. Maybe they said growth, but really meant reliable income. Clarifying catches that.
And the final step in the funnel is T for tieback or confirm.
Right. This is where you start testing potential alignment before pitching a specific solution.
So something like, okay, based on that, if we could find an approach that targets, say, a 5–6% return with moderate risk, would that feel like it meets your need for steady income without taking on too much volatility?
Perfect. You're checking if a potential outcome resonates with their stated needs and comfort level. It bridges the gap between discovery and solution. If they say, no, I need more like 8%, well, that tells you something important, right? Maybe their expectations need managing, or you need to explore different options.
So you've used the funnel, you feel you understand their needs, goals, concerns. Now it's time to talk solutions, framing the pitch.
And the key here is linking everything back to what they told you.
The guide stresses linking a fund feature to a stated goal, like, because you mentioned wanting that steady monthly income for your expenses.
This particular equity income fund, which focuses on regular distributions, could be a potential fit. Okay. Featured distributions link directly to the goal, steady income. The because you said part is powerful.
And then personalizing the benefit. Make it real for them.
Yes. The example was great. So that could mean, for instance, that the money for your son's tuition payments arrives from those distributions rather than having to sell off parts of the investment itself.
Makes it tangible. Not just yield, but tuition payments covered.
Exactly. Or if they want to travel, those dividends could help fund that trip to Europe you were planning. Connect it to their life, their dreams. That creates buy-in. Another example, for someone saving for a first home, the potential growth in this balanced fund could help you reach your down payment goals sooner.
And you need to back this up, right? The proof source idea.
Absolutely. You can't just make claims. You need evidence. That could be a Morningstar rating.
Explaining what that rating actually means, I guess.
Oh, definitely. Don't just throw jargon out. This 4-star rating means it's performed in the top third of similar funds, considering risk, or showing the risk meter on the fund facts. See? It's rated medium, which aligns with your comfort level we discussed.
Or a 10-year return chart.
Yeah, showing the historical performance, while reminding them past performance isn't a guarantee of future results, of course, but it gives context. These proofs build credibility.
And before diving too deep into the specifics of one fund, the guide suggests a trial close.
Just a quick check-in. How does that general idea sound to you so far? Or does this type of approach seem like it might fit what you're looking for?
Gauging their reaction before you spend 10 minutes on the details.
Exactly. It's a pulse check. Are they nodding along, or do they look hesitant? If they hesitate, you pause, ask what their concerns are, and address them before going further. Saves time and avoids misunderstandings.
Okay, they seem receptive. Now you're actually presenting the mutual fund solution. The guide says, walk through the fund facts page by page.
Well, maybe not every single word, but hitting the key sections. It's about transparency and education. Show them the MER, the management expense ratio.
And explain what that is.
Crucial. This is the total annual cost of running the fund. Then point out the top holdings. C, it invests in companies like X, Y, and Z, which gives you an idea of the strategy. And definitely highlight the risk scale again.
Making the MER relatable seems important too. The guide suggests translating the percentage.
Yes. Instead of just MER is 0.95%, say. So on a $25,000 investment, that works out to about $237 a year, or roughly $20 a month, like a couple of cups of coffee.
Puts it in perspective, makes the cost less abstract.
Much more understandable, helps them weigh the cost against the potential value.
And always linking back to suitability.
Constantly. Remember, we talked about your moderate risk tolerance. This fund's medium risk rating fits with that. Or, since your time horizon is long-term, for retirement, this fund's focus on growth aligns with that goal. You're reinforcing why this specific fund makes sense for them.
Visuals again here, like that sample pie chart.
Yeah, showing the proposed asset mix visually can be really powerful. So we might put, say, 60% in this balanced fund we discussed and 40% in the equity income fund to boost your income. Seeing the pie chart makes the overall strategy click for many people.
Now, inevitably, clients have questions or objections. Handling questions and objections. First step.
Acknowledge it positively. That's a great question. Or, I understand why you asked that. Validates their concern. Shows you're listening.
Then try to isolate the real issue.
Yeah, sometimes the first objection isn't the main one. So asking, okay, I hear you're concerned about the fees. Is there anything else holding you back, or is that the main thing? Helps you focus.
Get to the heart of the matter.
Right. So you can address the core concern effectively.
And how do you respond? With evidence.
Ideally, yes. If it's about fees, maybe show how the MER compares to the average for similar funds in its category. You see, while there is a cost, it's actually slightly below the average for funds like this.
Or show the return after fees.
Exactly. Here's the fund's performance over the last 5 years, even after accounting for the MER. Use data to address the concern factually, where possible.
And always check if you've actually resolved it.
Absolutely critical. Does that explanation make sense? Or does that help address your concern about the fees? Don't just assume your answer satisfied them. Make sure. If not, you need to discuss further or try a different tack.
Okay, questions handled hopefully. Time for gaining commitment, the close. The guide says watch for buying signals.
Yeah, those little cues that suggest they're leaning towards saying yes. They might literally lean forward, nod more, start asking practical questions like, so how quickly could this be set up?
Recognizing those signals tells you it's probably a good time to move towards finalizing things.
Right. You can transition more confidently.
The guide offers a couple of closing techniques. One is the assumptive close.
This is where you proceed as if they've already decided, but gently.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. Let's get the purchase form filled out then, so we can aim to have the units in place by Friday's closing price.
Assumes the sale, conveys confidence. Needs to be used carefully, though.
Definitely. It works best when rapport is strong and buying signals are clear. You don't want to seem pushy.
Another option is the alternate close, offering a choice.
Yeah, giving them a choice between two yes options. Would you prefer to set up the automatic contributions monthly or bi-weekly? Or the example, would you prefer funding this mainly through your TFSA, or should we start with the non-registered account?
Makes it easier for them to say yes to something.
Exactly. It simplifies the decision down to a minor point, moving the process forward.
Whatever the technique, summarizing next steps is vital.
Absolutely. Always end with clarity. Okay, so the next steps are, I'll email you the transfer form tonight. Please review it, and then we can connect briefly tomorrow to confirm. And let's book our next review meeting now for 6 months out.
No ambiguity. Everyone knows what happens next.
Right.
And the relationship doesn't stop there. Follow-up and relationship maintenance. This seems crucial for that long-term focus.
It really is. The meeting is just one point in time. The follow-up solidifies things.
First, a thank you email within 24 hours.
Yes. Quick, professional. Summarize the key decisions made, maybe list the agreed-upon next steps again, and attach any relevant documents you promised.
Then add a personal note.
Nice touch. Reference that hobby again or the upcoming event they mentioned. Hope you have a fantastic time camping next week. It just reinforces that personal connection.
Being proactive about the next meeting, too.
The guide suggests setting the next review meeting in the calendar before you even leave the current meeting or immediately after. Don't leave it vague. Lock it in. Shows commitment to ongoing service.
And beyond the formal reviews, ongoing touch points.
Yeah, little things to stay top of mind and show you're still engaged. Maybe a quarterly performance snapshot with a brief comment. A birthday card.
Sharing relevant content, like a market update podcast link, maybe?
Exactly. Things that add value and reinforce your role as a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
It's about nurturing that long-term relationship, not just being there when a transaction happens.
Okay, nearly there. The guide wraps up with some important reminders. Body language, do's and don'ts.
The nonverbal stuff. Hugely important, but often overlooked.
So, the do's. Keep hands visible, signals, openness, apparently.
Mirroring their posture subtly can build rapport. Nodding when listening shows engagement.
Maintaining eye contact about 60% of the time, not staring. And leaning slightly forward shows interest.
All positive signals. They help create a comfortable, trusting atmosphere.
And the don'ts. Crossing arms looks defensive, fidgeting, distracting.
Leaning back or swiveling in your chair can seem disinterested. Interrupting is obviously bad. Glancing at your watch, fatal.
Staring too intensely, or hovering too close.
Yeah, respect personal space. These negative signals can undermine everything else you're doing right. Awareness is key.
Finally, a quick checklist before you walk in. Practical reminders.
Just a final mental check. Have your objective written down, got the fun facts printed, maybe highlighted.
Blank risk questionnaire copies ready. Pen. Not just relying on a tablet unless they've consented to recording, maybe.
Right. Basic tools. And the big one. Remember to listen 70%, talk 30%.
That ratio keeps coming up. It really emphasizes the discovery part.
It has to be about them, understanding them. That's the core of relationship selling.
And the guide connects all these detailed steps back to that broader 10-step relationship selling model, doesn't it?
Exactly. Prospecting, pre-approach, which we discussed a lot, the approach itself, the discovery, the FCBT funnel, presentation, handling objections, trial close, closing, follow-up, and then expanding the relationship. This guide basically provides the how-to for several key stages within that larger framework.
It ensures the steps are client-focused and compliant.
That's the goal.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the big takeaways seem to be the value of a structured, repeatable process for these meetings.
Definitely. And the absolute necessity of genuinely understanding the client's unique situation, their goals, their fears, their context.
Plus clear, transparent communication, ethical conduct as a foundation.
And that constant focus on building and maintaining the relationship over the long haul. It's not a one-off transaction.
And like we said at the start, even if finance isn't your field, these principles are so applicable, aren't they? Preparation, active listening, clarifying understanding, building trust.
Universal skills.
Yeah.
Thinking about how you communicate, how you structure important conversations, it can make a difference anywhere.
So here's a final thought for you listening. How could applying a more structured, understanding-focused approach change your important conversations, whether at work or personally? Is there maybe one specific thing from this guide, like paraphrasing to clarify or using a permission statement that you could try out next time?